remember when people used to say things like Merry Christmas to each other. Everybody said, Merry Christmas! Hey, Merry Christmas to you, Mr. Lowenstein. See, I just say Happy Holidays because I don't want to say Christmas because you don't believe in Christmas because I don't want to offend you.
It's called Christmas.
Well, it's good to be back. We are missing our good friend Chris Niemeyer today. He is on a trip with his oldest son. He's also going to be at your house, right, Jamie?
Yeah, he's staying here tonight and tomorrow. I'm going to be hanging out with him in probably 45 minutes if we ever get this podcast recorded.
The big if. Yeah, that's right. We'll get there, but guess what? Without Chris Niemeyer, we are still crazy about our wives. We love our kids, and we want to kill it in business. And today we're going to have a great conversation. I'm calling it great already before it even happened. It's an important conversation about Christmas. We have somehow lost in this society what Christmas is really about. And what a tragedy that is, because it is such an amazing season. And if you look at it through the right lens, wow, what a powerful experience it can be for you, for your family, and for your friends. So we want to get back to the root of what Christmas is today and kick off this conversation. Jamie, before we got on this recording, you started to talk about a song that one of your friends wrote about Christmas. I think it really highlights what's happened to our society when it comes to Christmas. Talk about what that is.
Yeah, my friend Jamie goes to our church, and he's the lead for the band Go Fish. They're a Christian band. They did a song several years ago called It's Called Christmas with a capital C. You guys remember when Starbucks and Target were prohibiting their employees to say Merry Christmas to anybody? There's just been this assault through political correctness that we could almost offend somebody by saying Merry Christmas. And then, McCluskey, you were talking about how, I mean, you're not that much older than us, but 45, 50 years ago in grammar school when you were just a wee little McCluskey. Lad.
A wee lad.
It wasn't a Christian school necessarily, a public school, right?
It was public school, and every morning started with not only the Pledge of Allegiance, but a story by our teacher straight from the Bible. And that was happening in every classroom all around me. That was how you started the morning out. It's not like this is 100 years ago and we're trying to recall ancient lost history. Oh, back when we were a Christian nation. Now, man, I mean, that was integrated into the way public school started. We had stories from the Old Testament and the New Testament starting out each day. Let me see the pictures. And it was just that was the way the morning started. And yeah, I'm a youngish guy. I'm 55 years old. That was my childhood. You don't see anything even remotely close to that integration of the Christian foundations of our faith in our very secular culture now.
We were joking around about Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Frosty and Rudolph had become almost as synonymous with Christmas now as Jesus and the wise men and everything else. It got me thinking of Jay Leno and those talk show hosts that they would poll these people on the street, and they would always ask these really easy softball questions that everybody should know, like, what's the capital of the United States? And then people are like rubbing their head. And 40, 50 years ago, if you asked anybody whether or not they were a Christian or not, or a non-believer, that they would know the Christmas story because it was such a part of our country's heritage, our tradition. Even immigrants that would just come here would hear about it because we do have the bedrock of our country is from that lens of biblical Christianity and the Jewish roots. Now, that's just sort of being watered away with all the consumerism and everything else that goes along with Christmas. I mean, last week we talked about making the holidays great again. I think we should bring Christmas back to make Jesus great again because he is the reason for the season.
Yeah, you're so right, Jamie. And I think it's even gone further than just watering it down. Somehow it's been brought to the level of offensive at this point. Like even saying Merry Christmas could be an offensive thing to say. And you were bringing up the point just a little while ago of how come other holidays don't have that same issue. When it's Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day. Well, not everybody is Irish, so saying Happy St. Patrick's Day could be offensive. Can you imagine that happening to another holiday like that? Somehow the whole reason for Christmas is under assault. And where it starts, I think, is with us, right? How we lead that in our own families and the tone that we set for our families and how we bring our kids into what Christmas really is all about. And it's easy for even us to get pulled into the culture of how Christmas is lived out today. Like, I guess it's Christmas time. Let's go out, get a tree, put the lights up, buy a bunch of gifts, and then there we are on Christmas morning. Let's open the gifts, and maybe we'll sing a song together, and that's it. But, man, isn't there so much more there? And I know you guys are super intentional about how you do Christmas with your families. I'd love to hear just a little bit about what that looks like.
I think we were all, as soon as you floated, Michael, this idea for a theme to pick up on again today and kind of expand upon from last week, we were all totally on board. And lest it sound to any of our listeners like we're on a rant here or that we're offended that Christianity has become an offense, that's not our heart, not our spirit. Actually, we're not looking to set up military lines here and give an aggressive pushback so much as just to speak to those who do bear the name of Christ and are stewarding these three key areas, these domains that we focus on of your marriage, your family, and your business, to say, hey, if you hold that faith, there are some ways that you individually at least can approach Christmas in your own family, looking at the rituals and the traditions, the things that your family starts to orient around, and those become very infectious for the kids themselves, shape them with something they might otherwise be missing from the culture that once upon a time they did get from the culture. And, that does wind up then in a very positive way affecting other people as well. It's kind of a secondary gain by us focusing on our primary areas of responsibility of marriage and family, right? And businesses.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's such a great point. We are not just affecting ourselves and our own families, but everyone that steps through our doorway, every party that we attend around the Christmas season, how we view and live out Christmas, we have a lot of power to influence the people around us.
I shared, I think, a little bit with you about my buddy Dan Bilt, who's a amazing Christian entrepreneur, but we had him over this weekend with his daughter. I went and got the Santa outfit, and he was running around. We were all singing Christmas songs together. When we shared that meal together, we just all held hands, and he prayed. I asked him to pray. He just gave a really heartfelt prayer. Just stopped everybody. He said, I want to do something here. I want to go around the table. Maybe we can start with the children, and everybody come up with one thing that you love about Christmas and give the reason for it. Giovanni was the first person that volunteered, and he said, I love that all of our family is together. We talked about that on our podcast last week about making the holidays great again, creating a culture where there's just the ability for people to go deep and share. Christ shows up when we give him space. So when we take time to talk about what we're thankful, we give glory to God, hold hands, and then just share from the heart. And a lot of times that'll happen when there's a little bit more structure to it, right? Like go around like one at a time. People affirm the answers, but it was so sweet to hear the kids talk about what they loved about Christmas. Yes, the kids said, I love opening presents, but it was special because they were talking about the memories that they had and about being together as a family. I love that Christmas party, and I'm glad that Dan got to share it with us. You guys got to meet this guy, Dan. He's a super awesome EFM dude.
Love Giovanni stepping up there and sharing just his affection for being together as a family, right? How old is he now?
8 years old.
8 years old, and he's thinking about the value of being together. I mean, that's awesome. He's catching something so valuable there. How about you, McCluskey? What have you done over the years to really dig in and enjoy that season of Christmas together as a family?
Well, I'm going to grab your word that you just used there and of catching something, because I think a lot of what we're actually talking about is the spirit that we set in our homes. The things that come to represent the dynamic of how this family works and how this family celebrates the Christmas season. And we've talked here so many times on the podcast that our kids really get more of what's caught than what's taught. We do need to teach. We do need to have clear messages. We do need to explain the Christmas message. And yet so much of it is a covert, not always just overt kind of a thing. It's a caught thing. It's experienced because you're in a home where love reigns and where giving is indeed more highly praised than the receiving. What did I get? What did I get? Is it my turn to open a gift again? Instead, it's just, look at what you poured into making for somebody else there. The value of giving instead of receiving, the value of us and of love and the true Christmas story. Those things are taught, yes, and they're caught through the experience in the home.
Yep.
And I know that for Rachel and I, that's something that we have conversation about probably almost every single serious conversation, every single date night that we have. We're constantly, as husband and wife, evaluating the spirit of the home, the children's experience of what's it like to grow up as a McCluskey kid. And you can always fine tune, you can always nuance those things and make it richer, expressing more of the spirit of what our faith really tells us life can be.
Yeah. That is so good. And it's not about a quick fix sort of activity that you're going to do that's going to make your Christmas great. This is something that you're establishing over time and intentional about. And I love how you said you and Rachel are on date nights talking about this. This is not just happening naturally. You're very intentional about how you establish this in your home.
Very definitely. I'm going to give you a really fun little example of this that comes just this year because one of our children, our third child, Grace, has just released a book. In fact, it doesn't hit the market until next year. And the book is called The Winter Elf. And she talks in there about where a fictional work like this, about an elf that appears around the holidays, would come from. She says, this story has been a long time in coming. I've walked with these characters for years and learned more about them than could ever be written. At the same time, their lives are not my own, and they have several secrets they still wish to keep from me. Now, these are fictional characters, of course, that she's playfully writing about here. Kind of the story almost wrote itself for her. So she says, I hope my dear elf might bring some happiness to people and provide a source of comfort and new understanding to aching hearts. And then here's what I want you to hear. She says, I have many memories of my father reading to my 6 siblings and me before bed as we lay scattered about the floor, eyelids growing heavy in the comfort of story time. Those nights instilled in me a wonderful sense of nostalgia, as enchanting characters and a passion for fiction were drawn up from my soul. These eventually found form in the tale before you now, which I invite you to enjoy and share in that same evocative spirit. Now, that's a pretty cool little piece to read from your daughter about this book that I'm here holding in my hand. But let me take you to the next little section here to just again underscore the emphasis for us as dads, every one of us listening right now. You're a dad, and your presence in the home and the way that you choose to steward that is something that very much is caught by your children, and you don't know what fruit it may bear. I never had any thought that any of my kids would write stories. So here she has, again, at the beginning of the book, a letter to grown-ups. It's literally called that, a letter to grown-ups, and she's reading to the parents or grandparents, whoever it is that's going to read this story to little children. She's telling them how to create that atmosphere. Catch this. She says, Dear grown-up, please seize this story as a chance to enter the world of childhood, fantasy, and even theater. Story time is not simply a means of lulling children to sleep, but rather the duty to enrapture them in the imagination of another world and inspire the courage to follow dreams. I am the author, but you are the magician. Cast a spell then with your voice, dim lighting, perhaps a fire in the hearth, or pine-scented candles. Create safety with hot cocoa, warm blankets, and a place for children to rest. Enchant this story with a slightly slower and softer tone, as if there's a secret that children must wait to discover. Give voices to my Clara Rose and to my elf. Even try an English accent for Sydney. Children don't much care if it's accurate. Most importantly, dear grown-up, if only for a moment, you must believe in magic. Believe in fairies and singing stars and in miracles and in elves. That which is improbable breeds the purest hope, the essence of dreams. She goes on talking about storytime magic there, but what she's really talking about is a spirit that we bring to storytime or to any interaction with our kids. Jamie, like you were talking about, sharing around the table the things that we love, or people being bold enough to make real prayer requests of each other, or any other ritual that they think they'd like to introduce, but they're afraid other people will think it's corny or goofy or whatever. The spirit we set at the beginning as dads will hugely impact what then becomes the environment that the family experiences at Christmas time or any time of the year.
Oh, man, I love that.
Yeah, I said I would tell people where they could get the book if they want to. It's just in pre-release, but it's a beautiful hardcover book. You can get it online at thewinterelf.com. That's Gracie's book.
My body feels a little bit warmer after just listening to that. Just the other night, I was laying down in front of the Christmas tree, right by our little gas fireplace, just under the Christmas lights, reading a story to my two oldest. And you're so right, Chris. It's so important to create an environment that feels safe and warm and opens up the mind and the heart to possibilities, to exploration. That is a beautiful picture of what that can look like. And I think everyone listening to that is probably imagining their own place right now when they have felt that, whether it's sitting in front of a fire on a snowy day, watching the snow come down outside, but feeling cozy and warm inside and letting their mind run the way it was meant to. And what a beautiful picture of what setting that tone in your own home looks like. And you know what the opposite of that is? It's just flipping from commercial to commercial on television, or from store to store in the mall looking for the perfect gift. I mean, that is the opposite of what that is, or of what you're talking about right there in my mind.
Yeah, there's so many rituals like that. Making hardtack candy together and caroling. Jamie, I was watching some Facebook video of you I think it was this morning, that there was a video of you and one of your kids caroling at the keyboard. There's so many things that we can choose to do, or at least try to implement. Some of them won't take, but you at least tried. And then you modify it and you do something different. But our kids love the creche, the manger scene and we have a really nice one. It's a focal point. It's a way for even very young children to grasp the story and to enter into that space of imagination, because you're trying to tell them a story that happened 2,000 years ago and yet has eternal impact and all. Well, they can pick up and manipulate those things. They're not just listening, they're interacting. Food, celebrations, so many things that bring an experience into all of our five senses and a tremendous cognitive awareness of the now and the us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm grateful for my parents have always been really intentional about creating these environments around Christmas time especially. And they have 13 grandkids right now. And they actually do a play where all the grandkids are involved. And they dress them up as shepherds, and there's a manger scene, and the kids all act each step of it out. It's hilarious because they're bumping into each other. Some are falling down. Some of them can't see because the shepherd hat is down in front of their eyes. But they know more about the story because they're walking it and they're hearing it as it unfolds, and they're a part of it. And those are the moments that I feel like they remember the most. When you ask them about, what did you like about Christmas? Oh, I love when I was a shepherd. And we also do this other thing where my dad has a hay wagon, and we all bundle up and get on the hay wagon. Everybody gets to hold a candle, and we drive the hay wagon around the neighborhood and stop in front of different houses and sing Christmas carols. And sometimes people come out and listen. Sometimes people will come out and sing with us. Other times we'll meet new people who have heard us on the street, and they'll come out and sing with us. And it's about connection and memories, and none of it is about gifts or giving or receiving material things. It's about being together and sharing in a moment of mystery and a moment of appreciation, of sharing humanity. It's just a beautiful thing. And when I think about Christmas, it's about moments like that.
It's so beautiful. I've seen your family do that for years, Michael, and I'm sure that there's people that hear that and it inspires them, and then there's other people that think our family's so far away from doing that. But it's never too late to start and just introduce something that the next year it takes on a new life of its own and becomes a tradition. And I know the McGreevy family, that they've done things like that for years, and your annual family Christmas party, it's developed a culture because you've done it for so many years that there's certain things that just happen over and over again. We got an invitation. My friend David Osk is just an amazing tenor vocalist, and he was singing at the Christ Presbyterian Church. He was one of the vocalists for Handel's Messiah. But you know what? Like, it was just an amazing memory of those songs, and I think we're going to do that again next year. I love the idea of just introducing traditions to our family, just bringing back that sacred place that Christmas has had in the history of our country, and we're kind of losing it. Those family parties that you guys are talking about, that McCluskeys and McGreevy's do, those are just sweet places of fellowship. It reminds me in the Dickens, The Christmas Story, where the ghost of Christmas brings Ebenezer back to that one party where everybody is dancing and has a drink in their hand, and there's just such jolliness.
And old Fezziwigs, right?
Oh, yes.
There's old Fezziwig. He knew how to celebrate. He knew how to love on people. That was what it was.
There's such a stark contrast between that and the football game where people come in, like we were talking about last week, like, come on in and grab a beer, instead of like, come on in and partake in deep fellowship, deep relationship. It's a safe place where people care about each other and serve each other. Doing that is part of bringing Christmas back.
I'll tell you what, man, just this last weekend, we did some shopping with some of our younger kids here in preparation for our big Christmas party. They plan it all. They host it here. It's 100 kids or so that'll come, and they're all decked out. We've talked about it before. They've got the gals all in ball gowns and the guys in suits and ties or tuxedos, and it's a big shindig. But that means they have to go out every year and buy new stuff because they're growing constantly. They're all kids. So 7 kids, everybody's got to have their new outfit. So Sarah did shopping in St. Louis with Rachel all day long, did not find a dress for the Christmas party that she wanted, but they had a ball. She sent photos of them trying on dresses. Sarah was feeling so good about herself as a young woman and enjoying her feminine beauty, and Rachel's getting to make over her. So you think about the layers of what's going into even getting ready for this stuff. Then they went to Springfield and found the dress. And so now there's photos of that. And the boys each got their suits. My son Braden came into my room, man, and he's modeling this Italian cut suit. It's not that expensive, but it was a good brand, and it looked smashing on him. He's on text with his buddies then afterwards, and they decided they were going to go into town that evening for some get-together anyway, but they would wear their suit jackets just because he was enjoying, again, becoming a young man. And, hey, I look good in something other than just a T-shirt or something. There's layers of preparation and anticipation in celebration anytime that we as dads communicate very clearly that we value this stuff. It's important. Yes, we'll put money toward that. Yes, we'll commit time to get that, whether it's caroling or any of these things that we're talking about. These are the rich heritage, and these do capture that spirit of Christmas, the spirit of Christ, and Christ coming and redeeming and love and beauty. All the good that's in the world is symbolized in his coming, in addition to his redemptive work. We as dads are the carriers of that to our next generation, or we can be.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of my favorite movies around Christmas time especially is It's a Wonderful Life. And if you're a dad, if you're a husband, if you are an EFM guy, you're getting, let's just say, you're getting kicked around a little bit. Mm-hmm. And life can be challenging at times. And then to think about, how am I going to pull my whole family together and give them a meaningful Christmas experience? It just feels awkward and clunky and difficult at times. You know that part in It's a Wonderful Life where George Bailey is just at the end of himself. His business is failing. He lost a bunch of money. He doesn't know what he's going to do. And he's leaning on a bridge on a snowy night, looking out over the water, just ready to give up. He just wants to throw in the towel. And he was given an incredible gift, an invitation to really feel, know, and understand what Christmas is really about. And if that's you, if you're struggling, you don't know where to start, that's okay. We're in this battle with you. We're getting beat up right alongside you. And it's worth fighting for. Even if it's something simple as sitting down with your family on Christmas morning before you open presents and just reading the story of Christmas, of Jesus' birth. Can you be present in that moment? Can you read that story with inflection in your voice? To really fully let it sink in what Christ has done for us all when he came. Be present with your family. Make it about what it was supposed to be about the birth of our Savior. Merry Christmas.